Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Marty Ross, and this is another Conversations with Marty Ross MD tonight. This is a webinar that you create about Lyme disease, and the way you create it is with your questions. So the way you participate is there's a chat box down here at the bottom on the right-hand side of the screen. Write your question to me there. The only thing I ask is as you're writing your question that you don't hit the enter key until the whole question is complete, all right? If you try to hit the enter key in the middle of writing that question, it actually sends multiple questions my direction. It makes it a little bit hard for me to navigate on my side of the screen. So I appreciate if you only touch that enter key one time per question. I am creating a recording of the webinar tonight, and sometime tomorrow morning, probably around 6:30 a.m. Seattle time, that's Pacific Standard Time, that recording will be coming to you, or the notice of that recording being done will come to you through an email that I'll be sending out to you. If you happen to miss that, you can find the recording on the webinars page at treatlyme.net. You can also find it on the front of my supplements page, Marty Ross MD supplements at treatlyme.com. That's right, it's confusing. The supplement store is treatlyme.com, and the Lyme disease information site called TreatLyme is treatlyme.net. Okay. Another place you can find it is on my YouTube channel. And then finally, tomorrow morning on my Facebook page, facebook.com/treatlyme, I will post the recording there as well too. So there's multiple ways to find that recording if for some reason you happen to miss the email that I send out to you. It is also my intention in tomorrow morning's email to send out a link for the sign up for the next series of webinars. However, there's one glitch on that. I need to upgrade the site, the webinar program site, so that it is compliant with the new privacy standards in Europe. And so I have to do a migration from one platform to another to do that. So I hope it all goes as I want it to. Yes, I do my own tech work, but there's sometimes even I get stumped on it. So if that migration goes well tomorrow morning, there will be a sign up also for the next series of webinars. If not, we may have to wait till this weekend until I can figure out how to master the migration to the one that is compliant with the new GDPR privacy standards for our European participants, okay? Let me see if I have any other business. So this is the last webinar for June. I will take next week off and then be back at it again. I have to look at that. I may not be back at it the first week of July because I think that's going to come close to the July 4th weekend. Somewhere in July, I will wind up doing 3 webinars in there too. So keep your eyes out for tomorrow morning, okay? During the webinar, I actually post your questions on the screen so that those of you that are participating here live can actually see it. That sometimes is hard to read in the recorded version. And so for that reason, during the webinar tonight, I'll actually read the questions as I post them too, all right? So let's go ahead and get started here. First question is from SJ. Let's see, what criteria do you use to decide whether somebody should be on doxy or amoxicillin? I've been on Banderol, Cemento, Stevia for 3 months without much improvement. Want to talk to my doc, who is not really Lyme literate, about prescribing doxy for me to try with grapefruit seed extract. Is amoxicillin better, fewer side effects, also experiencing slight weakness in the lower extremities in one arm, and having weakness sensation in mouth intermittently, of almost drooling, but have not actually drooled yet. Any tips for supplements? What do you think about niacin? Okay, let me try to answer it. You got 3 major questions in one. So first of all, SJ, thank you for writing a question tonight. All right, so the trick in designing a Lyme germ treatment is that you want to make sure that the antimicrobials you choose, whether they're herbal or whether they're prescription, will treat all 3 ways that Lyme lives in you. All right, so one of the things that makes Lyme really hard to deal with is that it has the ability to live in you in 3 forms. One of those forms is the spirochete. Many of you seen pictures of that. It looks like a corkscrew, okay? There's another form of the germ where it loses its coat, moves inside of cells, and we call that intracellular Lyme. And then there's a third microscopic form called a microscopic cyst form of the germ, all right? So when we design a treatment, we want to make sure we're doing things to treat all 3 forms. Amoxicillin that you mentioned only treats spirochete Lyme. And it does so by preventing the covering of the germ from repairing itself. And so essentially over time, as the germ covering, the spirochete covering gets injured, it develops holes in it, grows, and the germ bursts, okay? All right? All right. Doxycycline, on the other hand, actually treats two forms of the Lyme germ. It treats spirochete Lyme, and it treats Lyme that lives inside of cells. And that's because doxycycline moves inside cells. And keep in mind, the spirochete is actually a big cell as well, too, okay? So doxycycline is going to pick up two forms, amoxicillin one form. Grapefruit seed extract that you mentioned is going to treat the cyst form of the Lyme germ, all right? So my preference of what you just mentioned here would be doxy and grapefruit seed extract. If you're going to do the doxy, I would try to do it a minimum of 100 milligrams twice a day, and maybe stronger if you actually can get your doctor to prescribe 2 of the 100 milligram pills twice a day, all right? If you do take doxy, make sure you're taking it with food on your stomach. Ignore what the pharmacist puts on that label. Ignore them. You're going to get nauseated on doxy. So make sure you take it with food in your stomach, but not milk products that contain calcium or calcium supplements at the same time, because that decreases the absorption of it, okay? All right. So yeah, okay, so that's one thing. Let's see, second part, or one part of your question, let's see. Or second part of your question, I think was, let's see, having slight weakness in the lower extremities, one arm having weakness sensations in the mouth intermittently. Okay, so those sensations that you're describing are what I would call sensations of neurologic injury, okay? And the one thing so the first step in repairing any neurologic injury is making sure you're treating your germs, all right? So number one, treat your Lyme. Number two, make sure you don't have Bartonella. Bartonella sometimes can give neuropathy as well too. And so you need to see if you have a lot of symptoms that suggest Bartonella, because the testing isn't that good. And if you do, then you want to treat for Bartonella, all right? And there are some other steps you can take to repair nerve injury. And I think what I'm going to do for the sake of the webinar tonight, because I pretty much answered one big question for you, I'm going to show you the article that you can take a look at that I have written about how do you approach healing of nerves when they've become injured, okay? All right, so I'm going to do a quick screen share here. Is Treat Lyme, which is my Lyme disease information site. And it's beginning to look like either on Friday or Monday or Tuesday of next week, we'll be launching a new version of this, okay? It has taken forever, but it is coming together. But for now, what you would do to look at information about how to treat nerve injury, take a look at my chapter called Brain and Nerves. And you're going to want to take a look at this article called Neuropathy Repair. It's this one right here, Neuropathy Repair, Heal That Tingling, Numbness, and Pain. And in here, I'd lay out that they're essentially, that you want to treat your germs, like I just said. You want to lower inflammation with curcumin. You also want to repair nerve cell membranes and mitochondria that make them work correctly. Mitochondria, the energy factories, with something called NT factor. You're also going to want to be on some glutathione. And I mentioned a couple other things in this article too. Okay, now, how do you know if you have Bartonella? Well, take a look at my chapter on how to diagnose. All right, and I would take a look at the this article down here called It Could Be Bartonella or Babesia, the Signs and Symptoms. In this article, I talk about how to diagnose Bartonella, because you're going to want to make sure that you don't have Bartonella. Take a look at that article, all right? All right, I hope that gets you pointed in the right direction here, SJ. Good luck to you. And thank you for that question. Oh, SJ, you asked about niacin. Niacin is going to help dilate your blood flow or your blood vessels to get greater blood flow. I don't really find it makes much difference in Lyme, to be quite honest with you. All right? Okay. Hello, Thomas. Let's see. Good evening, Dr. Ross. Hope you are well. I am. Thank you. What do you recommend for someone dealing with Lyme who has come down with a rough stomach virus as it tends to really make all my Lyme symptoms worse on top of everything else. Would olive leaf extract be a good herb to help things? Okay, so when somebody has Lyme disease, the reason you feel badly is that your immune system overproduces a group of chemicals called cytokines, okay? All right. So cytokines are made by white blood cells when they see Lyme, or they see a stomach virus, or they see too many yeast in your intestines, or they see mold toxins floating around your bloodstream. And the cytokines are made to turn your immune system on to deal with those problems, to fight them, okay? Now, in the right amount, they actually turn the immune system on. But if the immune system is having a hard time with one of these problems, it will wind up making more and more cytokines to try to rev itself up more and more. And eventually it can make too many cytokines. And too many cytokines give you what we call Lyme symptoms and what we actually call virus symptoms and what we call mold toxicity symptoms, okay? So too many cytokines will make it so you can't think. They'll make you hurt all over, give you bad fatigue, sometimes can give you nausea. But it gives you that whole host of symptoms that we call Lyme symptoms that we also recognize largely as being the achy, fatigue, brain fog symptoms of virus syndromes as well too, all right? So it doesn't surprise me that all of your Lyme symptoms are making you feel a lot worse or got worse as you had this virus infection, because the virus is also kicking up cytokines the same way that your Lyme infection does, all right? Okay. So one thing you want to make sure you're doing is things to lower cytokines to feel better. So I would definitely be on curcumin. That's one of my favorite anti-cytokine agents. It's a 500 milligram pill. I prefer a liposomal form of curcumin. It means it's microscopically wrapped in fat. And the product I like for that is a Thorne product called Mariva 500. I usually have people do one pill 3 times a day on that. If you're really flared up, you might want to do 2 pills 3 times a day, okay? Second thing you can do to help acutely lower cytokines when they're made in excess, either because of virus or if you're having a Herxheimer reaction, because in a Herxheimer reaction, you have cytokine excess again, all right? So what you could do to acutely lower it is, number one, get on at least 1,000 milligrams of the curcumin 3 times a day. Number two, be on glutathione. So glutathione is a very powerful antioxidant that is manufactured every one of our cells, and its job is to fix injury, okay? But it also helps clear toxins that are triggering cytokines, and it lowers oxidizing agents that the immune system uses to fight infections, but it's those oxidizing agents that actually trigger white blood cells to make cytokines. So it stops the triggering of white blood cells to make cytokines. So you want to use a liposomal form of glutathione, just like you want to use a liposomal form of curcumin. And that's because liposomal forms are better absorbed. And the way you do this, the product I like for this is a liposomal product of glutathione is called Trifortify Orange or Trifortify Watermelon, manufactured by Research Nutritionals. And when I use it for this kind of a purpose, I would do 500 milliliters, 400 to 500 milligrams, which is 5 milliliters of this product 1 time a day, okay? All right, so that's just to lower the cytokines, okay? In terms of what you could use to help kill the virus, olive leaf extract is a good choice. I would look at 500 milligrams 3 times a day on that, okay? All right, good luck to you, Thomas. Actually, let me just do a quick screen share here tonight. So already I've been talking about supplements here. I just want This is my supplement site. This is Marty Ross MD Supplements. Anything that I mentioned generically here tonight, you can find a product here. So for instance, you could type in olive leaf extract, and you'll see I have a number of products that have it in it. For the olive leaf extract, I either like this one called Oliverix or this one called olive leaf extract by Thorne, okay? So it just gives you an idea. If you're hearing me mention things, you want to know what products would I use in my practice, which ones do I think are the highest quality and have the greatest chance of helping a person, take a look at my supplement store, and anyone buy from my supplement store, okay? All right. Let's see here. Hello, Craig. Let's see. Thanks for all you do for us, Dr. Marty. You're welcome. Being treated for Lyme, mold, yeast, and MARCoNS. Does mold cause MARCoNS? Is it okay to take rifampin, itraconazole, beg spray together while continuing to take binders? Thank you so much. Okay. So, trying to think of how to explain this. So, there's a physician named Richie Shoemaker, who is the person that came up with the idea and developed a whole bunch of science showing that there are about 25% of people that can get mold toxins in them and then not be able to remove them. Okay. So we can get mold toxins from mold in our environment, usually our wet buildings of some kind. And when we're exposed to those mold toxins in those buildings, we can breathe them in. And 25% of us are genetically programmed in a way that we are unable to remove them once they get trapped in us, okay? So Richie Shoemaker would say remove that, and he likes removing those toxins with binders, things that would bind them up in the intestines and pull them out, okay? All right. Now, he's developed a whole other theory of illness, which he calls chronic inflammatory response syndrome, which is you get a condition that leads to inflammation, and then that inflammation stays locked in you. It just keeps perpetuating itself. And it makes you feel sick, all right? And in his theory, the first thing you want to try to correct if somebody has a lot of inflammation and fatigue and pain is remove mold toxins. If you remove their mold toxins and you get their mold levels down to 0 and they're still not doing well, then the second step after you correct your mold toxins is to try to remove a germ that could be living in your nose called MARCoNS. And MARCoNS stands for methicillin-resistant coagulase negative staph. That's a mouthful, okay? It's a germ that lives here, can cover itself in a biofilm. And what Shoemaker theorizes is that if that's in there, it can lead to inflammation in the body as well, too, okay? Now, I will tell you it's a theory. The reality is, and that is because I used to treat for it too, is that I don't find it makes any difference in how a person does to treat that. And I think it may be a germ that lives even in healthy people. And to make matters even worse, it's about dang near impossible to clean out of your system, even using antibiotic nose spray and antibiotics. And even Shoemaker would say that is the case too. So I don't bother with MARCoNS anymore. I don't think it makes a difference. I think we find it growing now. We think we're supposed to do something about it. But the reality is I've never seen treating it to make a difference for a person. So I just don't bother treating it, okay? So that's all right. So there is no, mold does not give you MARCoNS, but rather MARCoNS living in your nose is just one of the other things that happens in us that can lead to chronic inflammation. Just like mold toxins getting trapped in you can lead to chronic inflammation. Just like having a Lyme infection in you can lead to chronic inflammation, okay? It's just another source of chronic inflammation, but I don't think Shoemaker's right in his theory. I don't think it is a perpetual cause of chronic inflammation. He thinks it is. The reality is when you get it out, it doesn't matter. And even if you get it out, it's usually only temporary. It's going to come back again anyhow. So I don't even bother treating it, okay? All right. So let's see. Is it okay to take rifampin, itraconazole, beg spray together? Yeah, it is. I have no problem with that. You got to watch out with your itraconazole and your rifampin though, because both of those can inflame the liver. And so often, if I've got somebody that's going to be on those for more than a month together, I'm going to make sure I'm doing liver testing, liver blood testing, to make sure that the liver is okay. All right. Okay. Thanks for that question, Craig. And then I'm actually going to do a quick screen share here. In a minute here, I'm going to do one. All right, so many of you may be wondering a little bit more about this thing called mold toxins. If you have it, what's the best way to test for it? What do you use to remove it? All right, so what I would do, if you have questions about mold toxin illness and Dr. Richie Shoemaker and some people that have even come up with better ways to deal with the problem, and ideas that are better than Shoemaker's to deal with the problem, I take a look at this detoxification chapter here in Treat Lyme. And there's an article I've written called Mold and Lyme Toxin Illness. Take a look at this. Talks about what's the best test for mold toxin illness. Talks about a group of binders you can use to remove those mold toxins as well too. And even discusses when you might want to use a mold killer in you, like the itraconazole that you mentioned in that question. And I don't usually use mold killers in everyone, but sometimes I will. And I talk in this article about when do you decide to use a mold killer like itraconazole, okay? Hello, Meryl. Let's see. What is your view on stem cell therapy for Lyme? Are you familiar with the Infusio California Clinic opinion? Thanks so much. All right. So I think the jury is still out as to whether stem cell therapy is going to be a good thing for people with Lyme or not. Okay. It's too early to tell. So what stem cells, everyone, are is a very rudimentary cell that you can get out of fat cells, you can get from platelets. And you remove those rudimentary cells and then you put them where there's some injury. So for instance, if somebody's got damaged cartilage in their knee and they're having ongoing arthritis problems, if you were to inject stem cells in the knee, it could actually grow into healthy cartilage and fix that cartilage, okay? The idea in Lyme is that if you give stem cell infusions, it can help repair damage created by Lyme. So for instance, chronic injury to your nerves, or it can repair an immune system that is too suppressed to fight Lyme, for instance, okay? So it can fix damaged tissue, maybe get your immune system working better. It is not itself a germ killer, but if what's left in your Lyme after you kill enough Lyme germs, if the main problems you are having is symptoms due to damage, it might repair that damage. It might help your immune system work better too, okay? Now, no one's published studies yet, at least I haven't seen anything out of Infusio where they published any case studies. The only study I am aware of is one about stem cells in Lyme, okay, just looking at people with Lyme, is a study that was done by LymeDisease.org, a group that was formerly known as the California Lyme Disease Association. And they have a project which is called My Lyme Data. And what they do with My Lyme Data is they enroll people that have Lyme to provide them information whenever they have a question they want to look at. Okay, so for instance, if you're part of My Lyme Data, they would send out a question to you to say, we're wondering, do people get benefits from stem cell transfusions? Okay, and then people respond. And in November of 2017, Lorraine Johnson, who is the force behind My Lyme Data, presented at the International Lyme Associated Disease Society conference in Boston, and she talked about some things that they've learned. And one thing that she did present was the information they have about stem cell therapy, and their data says that 10% of people that get stem cell treatments get benefit. That seems pretty small, okay? The trouble with stem cells is it could be that a number of these people just got a one-time treatment instead of multiple infusions. So her data may be skewed more towards people that just had one infusion. I think people probably have a better chance of doing better if they get infused a number of times, okay? But the truth is, I don't know that going in and fixing damage is going to get rid of persistent infection. That often is the thing that's giving a lot of problems, okay? So what I would say to you is, I think it sounds like an interesting idea. I don't know. I honestly don't know. And I would be interesting if we could get if Infusio would actually publish some results from what they're seeing, or if somebody would go in and do research that's independent from Infusio to find out. But at this point, I just think it's too early to know. Okay. All right. Thanks for that question, Marilyn. Good luck to you. Hello, Colleen. Let's see. Someone told me about drinking each morning a teaspoon of Sol, pronounced Soleil water, that's been fully saturated with pink Himalayan salt overnight. Why would this be better than just dissolving a teaspoon of the same Himalayan salt in water and drinking it? Colleen, I have no idea. I don't know. I'm not sure if it is any better for you or not, and I haven't had any experience and working with patients that have done it before enough to know whether it makes a difference as well too. Okay, all right. Thank you for the question. Hello, Deb. Hi, Dr. Ross. I went off Banderol, Cemento, Sitacuta, and Hutunio 2 months, also nystatin, for upcoming test. I had been on these 1.5 years after 2 years of antibiotics. I have some fatigue, but had it before, and my feet are a bit more numb. Should I bring in rotating herbs as a precaution? I don't want to relapse my symptoms, mostly neurological. I was clinically treated for Lyme, BART, and Babesia. All right, I want to look back at the beginning part of your question here just a minute. Okay. So, Deb, to give you the best answer, I would need to ask you more questions about what's happened while being off of those herbs. Okay, so I can just make some general comments, and then if you do want more direct input from me, you might want to consider doing one of my consult visits where you can visit with me online, and I can give you some better ideas about what I think based on actually asking you a lot of questions. You and I could have a two-way conversation about it, okay? So, but the one thing I will let you know, if you've got active Lyme in you and you're on something that's killing it and then you stop it, it often can take about 6 weeks to 8 weeks before you'll start getting symptomatic, okay? And the reason for that is the Lyme germ is really slow growing. By some estimates, each germ that's in you replicates about every 4 weeks, maybe up to every 8 months, okay? So if you stop something that is killing the germ, keeping it under control, it's not going to grow back quickly. In other words, you're not going to get a huge bloom of the germ or gain enough germ load from being off of it until maybe about 6 weeks to 8 weeks later, okay? So the one thing I would have you ask, and just look back at your history, is was it about 6 to 8 weeks after you stopped the Lyme antibiotics? And those for you would have been the Banderol, Cemento, Sita, and Hutunia are going to treat Bartonella, okay? Was it at about 6 to 8 weeks that things started worsening? If so, you might benefit from getting back on some kind of an herbal treatment for Lyme, all right? And besides using the Banderol, Cemento, you might even consider doing something called teasel root. You could, which you would work up, you would start 5 drops twice a day, and then I would increase by 1 drop per dose every day until you reach 30 drops twice a day. Another option that you could use to treat for Lyme would be an herbal medicine complex called Biocidin LSF. LSF stands for liposomal variety of it. The liposomal variety may get better absorbed into your brain and into your nerve tissues, okay? And so that complex has about 10 different herbs in it, including a couple things to stimulate your immune system, like echinacea and shiitake mushrooms are in that. It's also got some lavender oil and rosemary oil in it that can kill yeast, can kill Lyme. The rosemary might even treat Bartonella. It's got some garlic in it that would treat yeast, Lyme, maybe Bartonella with that too. It's got some things in it that collectively break down biofilms. And it's been shown that these various components in it can block a defense mechanism that Lyme has, a tricky defense mechanism, where Lyme literally develops these pumps called efflux pumps that it uses to pump antibiotics out of the inside of the germ, effectively throwing out what we throw at it. And the Biocidin seems to be able to help with that. Now, if you're to do the Biocidin LSF, I would do the LSF form of it. At my store, you'll see there's actually 3 forms. There's a pill, there's a liquid dropper variety, and there's the LSF. I would do the LSF here, mainly because it gets better nerve penetration and brain penetration, okay? The way I start that usually is as 1 pump under the tongue 1 time a day, and then every 2 days I add another pump until a person will work to 1 pump 1 time a day, then to 1 pump twice a day, then to 1 pump 3 times a day. And eventually you add 1 pump a day every other day until you work up to 2 pumps 3 times a day. Now, if you get a herx on that, don't increase it until that herx passes, okay? All right? All right, let me show you where you can read a little bit more about back in this is the Treat Lyme site. Under my free reads chapter, you'll see an article that I have written about biocidin. So take a look at it here. This is a free article, and I go through the ins and outs of how you would wind up using it and why it would work well for you, okay? Hello, Jan. Let's see here. Thank you for what you do. You're welcome. Every time I go through a stressful period, I have a relapse. I'm on compounded cryptolepis. I believe that's what you mean by that, compounded cryptolepis. Let's see, have night sweats and a low-grade fever, air hunger. What can I do to help? Sorry for hitting the enter button. Well, it's okay. I mean, you can't always avoid doing it, okay? All right, so the symptoms that you've written here of night sweats, low-grade temperature, air hunger are some symptoms we see with Babesia, okay? Other symptoms that you might want to see if you have, just to confirm whether you have Babesia or not. Babesia also can give headaches in the front of the head sometimes. Some people with Babesia get very frequent deja vu experiences. It's a very strange symptom, but some people with Babesia get very frequent deja vu experiences. Sometimes Babesia can cause instability in your blood pressure system, so you'll get racing of your heart. Sometimes you'll pass out easily when you have Babesia. And so those are some major symptoms to think about. But the ones you list here sound like Babesia to me. Okay. So first of all, the one thing you want to do, if you're going to treat this herbally, the cryptolepis that you're taking, I would make sure that you're taking it as, I think that's cryptolepis you're saying, okay, but cryptolepis is CRYPTOLEPIS, cryptolepis, okay? And so you want to do 5 milliliters of it 3 times a day. If you want to add a second herb to help that work a little bit better, you could look at adding something called artemisinin, which is also known as Chinese wormwood. And the way you would do it, you want to use it at high doses for 3 days in a row and then take 11 days off. So usually I have a person start at 2 100 milligram pills 3 times a day for 3 days in a row, then be off for 11 days. And if you don't get clobbered too hard from that first round, then the next time you take it, you go up to 3 pills 3 times a day for 3 days in a row, then 11 days off. And if you can, at the next round, if you didn't get clobbered too badly, you go up to 4 pills 3 times a day for 3 days on, 11 days off. And then eventually, if you can, you go up to 5 pills, 500 milligrams 3 times a day for 4 days on. 3 days on, 11 days off, okay? The reason I'm suggesting you might want to do the 2 together is it sounds like you've gotten into a number of relapses here. So I'll make sure you have a pretty strong herbal treatment, okay? Now, you may see if you can get somebody to prescribe some prescriptions for you too. There are a number of other things you can use to treat Babesia. Generally, the prescription options are stronger. Herbal options will work about 75 to 80% of the time. Prescription options are going to work about 85% of the time. And so it's probably going to be easier for you to read through what those options are. I'll do a quick screen share here for you to show you, okay? The other thing that if you are a person that continues to have a number of relapses, you might want to go ahead and take some steps at the end of your treatment to prevent that relapse, okay? And so those steps would include, make sure you get 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. That boosts the immune system. Number 2, if you get well enough, start to do some limited exercise. That helps boost the immune system. But you have to do that exercise to tolerance. Don't do it at a level that clobbers you and knocks you down, okay? Number 3, eat organic foods. If you put non-organic foods in you, they're poisons in some people, and they can make your immune system not work so well, okay? 4th thing I'll have people deal with your emotional toxins, all right? So if you've got a lot of stress coming up, and that keeps knocking your immune system down, you need to deal with that, okay? And then the other thing I'll have people do often is to be on transfer factors, which are proteins made by cells in the immune system that detect infection, and they tell the army part of the immune system what germ it's supposed to fight. They tell it to get revved up to treat that one kind of germ, okay? So there's a transfer factor mix called transfer factor L+, and that's the letter L, and that's made by Research Nutritionals. It's got transfer factors in it that target Lyme and the co-infections. So it's got transfer factors in it for Lyme, Babesia, Bartonella, Ehrlichia, Anaplasma. So those are Lyme and the major co-infections. It's also got some transfer factors in it for Mycoplasma pneumoniae, Chlamydia pneumoniae, and a few viruses. And those are HHV6, cytomegalovirus, and the Epstein-Barr virus, okay? So you would want to make sure you're taking that as one pill twice a day, all right? Now, there is an occasional person that I will treat if they keep having Babesia relapses, that after I'm done treating them actively for infection, I may still give them an anti-malarial agent, an anti-Babesia agent, to just stay on permanently to keep the Babesia under control and to keep it from coming back, okay? However, in the real experience that I see in my practice is probably about 95% of the time that we treat Babesia, or if we repeat treat it, we do it with something stronger, about 95% of the time we can wipe it out and it won't come back and bother you again, okay? All right, I'm gonna do a quick screen share here again. My Lyme disease information site. And I'm going to take a look at the chapter called Infection Treatment Plans. All right, and I would look at, for information that I have about how do you treat Babesia, take a look at this article called Kills Babesia, A Brief Guide. It walks you through various prescription protocols that and herbal protocols that you could use to get Babesia under control, okay? Thank you for that question. All right, hold on here a minute, everyone. I got to get some water in. Okay, let's see here. I've been on antibiotics for a year and a half. Recently, I had a very serious problem with my gallbladder and have been taken off antibiotics. My doctor wants to put me on the Cowden protocol, and I would like a second opinion about this. So I'm not a strong believer in the Cowden protocol. My experience says that maybe about 40% of people get help from it. The problem, all right, now, that's for people that follow the Cowden protocol without thinking about or identifying which parts of it they actually need, okay? All right. The best part of the Cowden protocol are actually the two of the many herbs they use that target Lyme. And those two are Otoba bark extract, which they have as, which Nutrimetics has a product called Banderol, and another one called Cat's Claw, which they call Cemento, okay? Those two herbs used continuously, not pulsed the way Cowden would, work very well about 85 to 90% of the time to treat the Lyme infection, okay? I actually think if you're trying to figure out, if you're going to go more of an herbal protocol, I would take a look at my treatment protocol. It's the Ross Lyme Support Protocol. And it gives you choices to make based on what is happening with you, of things that might benefit you, okay? So it's a little bit different than Cowden, which is one size fits all. And Cowden doesn't even address all the problems. So for instance, Cowden really doesn't do much to lower cytokines. Cowden doesn't have a good way of keeping yeast under control. Cowden doesn't really do anything to help you with sleep. Cowden doesn't lower cytokines. Cowden doesn't adequately balance out the hormonal system or tell you why you would want to do that, okay? So let me do a quick screen share here, and I'm going to show you where you can take a look at some things here. take a look at this tab called Treatment Protocol. All right, and in here, this is my Lyme support protocol. This is what I even use with existing patients here at the Healing Arts Partnership, okay? So there are some essential things that you want to do in any Lyme treatment, okay? Number one, get sleep, all right? And I give you some herbal options and prescription options to do that. The reason you want to do that is it helps boost your immune system, okay? Number two, be on a paleo diet. I prefer a paleo diet as a means of getting inflammation under control and preventing yeast overgrowth, all right? Number three, lower cytokines. Get inflammation chemicals made by your immune system knocked down. The reason you want to knock them down is you'll feel better, but also those excess cytokines suppress the immune system. And Cowden says nothing about this, okay? Number four, be on a good adaptogen, something that helps your body deal with stress. I like ashwagandha for that. Number five, figure out if you have adrenal shortage or thyroid shortage, and if you do, take the steps that I mentioned here. Number six, be on a good multivitamin. Number seven, do some basic detox steps that I think work better than the stuff recommended in Cowden. One of those is be on glutathione. Number eight, do exercise if you can tolerate it. Number 10, get yeast out if yeast are in you, and I tell you how to do that here. And then finally, I talk in part 11 about the herbs you could use to get rid of Lyme. And if you happen to have Bartonella and Babesia in part 12, I tell you which herbs and how you would use them to get rid of those two, all right? So take a look at this. If you want it in a more simplified form in terms of herbal options, not the prescription options, but the herbal options, scroll back up to the top. And I'm trying to get myself back up to the top. And you can look at this section about where you can print off a short version. I call that the Earth version. And that actually is a table that has the various herbs you would use for sleep, what herbs you would use for cytokine control, what multivitamin, what glutathione, what herbs would you take to treat yeast, and then what herbs would you use to kill Lyme, Bartonella, or Babesia, okay? So it breaks it down into a usable protocol, and you have choice over which part you use. It's not a one-size-fit-all. You figure out what you're going to need to do out of here, okay? All right, let me go back here. Oops. You're going to see also regarding that protocol, it's going to be in a more readable form in the new site when it launches. And again, that new site, I think I literally am within the next 2 to 4 or 5 days. I think we're going to be launching that new site. So keep an eye out. Check back with Treat Lyme, maybe even on either on Friday or on Monday or Tuesday. I've got to probably try not to launch it new on Saturday when some of my web designers are not available to fix problems that we find after it launches, but we are really close to having that ready to go at this point. All right? All right. Thank you for that question, Margaret. Good luck to you. Hello, Jan. Let's see. I have night sweats and low-grade fever, air hunger. What can I do to help? Sorry for hitting the... Oh, wait a minute. We already got that part. That's the second part of your question. I saw that already. Let me get rid of that. All right. Hello, Beth. Let's see here. Hi, Dr. Ross. Hello. Let's see. When you have a patient with multiple issues, how do you decide what to treat first? I have Lyme, Ehrlichia, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, Bartonella, Babesia, mold, MARCoNS, and mold in my sinuses, and SIBO. So, boy, this is a hard one to answer. Generally, if it is, I need more history. I'll put it that way. Generally, when I'm treating somebody and it seems that they both have positive Lyme testing and large mold issues, I'm probably going to go after the mold toxins first. That's just generally. Now, I tailor it based upon the story the person tells me, okay? So if they tell me that they had a tick bite and they were living healthy until they moved into the house that had large amounts of mold living on the wall, and that's where they got sick, guess what I'm going to treat first? I'm going to treat mold toxins first, because sometimes just getting mold toxins out removes the situation that's triggering all those excess cytokines I talked about. Remember, the cytokines are what make you feel bad, okay? And if you can get the mold toxins out, maybe that Lyme that's living in you doesn't even cause any problems. Just because Lyme lives in you doesn't mean you need to remove it. You only need to remove it if it's knocking you around too much, okay? So, Beth, I'm sorry, but I can't answer this because I would not address all of these at the same time, but I need to know a little bit more about your history and when various things occurred, how your illness is occurring. For me, I'd have to ask a lot of questions to figure out what is best to treat in the beginning of your situation. Okay? All right. So I'm going to just go do a quick screen share because I want to show you how you would get input from me. Okay? Is back at Treat Lyme. So take a look at the online consult page here. Okay, and in here you can actually, I talk about how this consult visit would work, okay? So take a look at this and then also read the disclaimer form that I have. You'd have to hit this consent form button here, all right? But this may be a way that I can help give you advice. Just realize that when I do this, I can't prescribe and I can't order tests, but I'll have a good idea after I hear your story and get to ask you a bunch of questions, how you might want to stage the treatment. What things would you treat first and in what order? Okay? All right. Hello, Donalcy. What are your best strategies for healing the gut from damage of long-term antibiotic use? I am still treating Lyme with herbs, but feel like I am becoming much more sensitive to certain foods, etc. I follow a paleo-style diet, no gluten, dairy, soy, etc., and take probiotics and digestive enzymes. Bear with me a minute, Don. I'm just trying to see if there was another part to your question or if that was it. Looks like that might have been it. All right, let me post that again here. It's a really good question. I mean, so I was actually just at a conference a couple weeks ago or 3 weeks ago now down in Florida that was all about the gut microbiome, okay? And, there's starting to be just this huge body of knowledge that's starting to come out that show that healthy bacteria in the intestines are critical for detox, critical for immune function, that those, it's just not healthy bacteria, it's actually your gut microbiome, the organisms that live in the gut, are viruses, are bacteria, are parasites, and that this host of germs that lives there actually interacts with your genes and your genetic expression. It's involved in detox, it's involved in the genes that are involved in detox, it's involved in the immune system. I mean, it's a whole host of stuff that the gut microbiome does. And here we are in our Lyme treatments poisoning the bacteria part of that, okay? Now, what I will tell you is somebody that's managed this illness, for years, that there are times you have to poison the germs, and therefore, yes, there's a consequence that you may be disturbing the gut microbiome. Now, if the gut microbiome gets disturbed, you can start having an unhealthy balance and inadequate digestion. You can start having leaky gut syndrome, okay? The other thing that can happen if you get the good bacteria knocked down, it could be that you have too many yeast growing. That also leads to more leaky gut syndrome, all right? So everyone, what leaky gut syndrome is basically healthy functioning intestines. The insides of those intestines, the poop part of the intestines, are separated from your blood vessels by one layer of cells, all right? And those cells touch up against each other very tight to keep the things that are on the inside of the intestines from getting into the bloodstream. Okay, so you got inside of the intestines, one layer of cells, and then you got blood vessels down here. These cells have no gaps between them so that nothing from the intestines can get into the bloodstream down here. All right. The way that things get into the bloodstream down here is that good bacteria that line the intestines, along with good enzymes made by the pancreas and acid from your stomach, work to break food down into microscopic particles so that it's just amino acids instead of full proteins, and it's fatty acids instead of whole fats, and it's small pieces, microscopic pieces of corn instead of big pieces of corn. And those get absorbed, they get taken into these cells, pass through the cells, and then into the bloodstream. All right. Now, between these cells and your blood vessels is 70% of the body's immune system. Just sits right there. Okay, then you got your blood vessel, right? So in healthy functioning intestines, where things go from here and they get absorbed into here and they get into the bloodstream, this acts as a barrier to keep things out and undigested food out. Okay. Now, if you get infection on top of here, like too many yeast, these will plump up and pull apart, creating gaps, and now you get partially digested food getting through. And guess what it hits? It's all those immune cells, flaring them up, making it so you start getting allergic to a lot of different things. Okay, all right. So first thing I would do, Donna, is consider if you might have too many yeast, and if you do, treat it. And I'll show you where you can go on my website to figure out if you might have too many yeast. Okay. Second thing I would do is to promote healing of those gaps between the cells. Is I would get on some, and this is to decrease the inflammation. I would get on vitamin D, about 5,000 international units one time a day. I'd also be on vitamin A, about 10,000 international units one time a day too. All right. The other thing I would do is be on Saccharomyces boulardii, which is a healthy yeast that can help decrease inflammation in the gut so that these cells are not plumped up and pulled apart, but they grow back together again. And I would do a couple pills one time a day of the Saccharomyces B. I would keep all your probiotics going. I would be on digestive enzymes. And then the other thing I would do is take the fuel source for your cells that line the intestines to help them work better and heal better. And that's something called L-glutamine. And you would want to do L-glutamine about 4 grams 3 or 4 times a day. Okay. All right. So it's L-glutamine. Often it comes as a powder container that has scoops, and you want to use that as well too. All right. So the reason you want to do vitamin A, vitamin D, and Saccharomyces B is that they change the inflammatory environment from one that's being more allergic in the gut to one that is better at fighting infections. Okay. So they decrease what's called Th2 inflammation, and they lead to a better balance of Th1 inflammation, a more healthy balance of that. All right. So that's why you want to do that. You also want to be on some curcumin as well, 500 milligrams 3 times a day. Okay. Now, the one idea that I started wondering about at this microbiome conference is entertaining the idea that I wonder if maybe at the end of treatment, when we're done with antibiotics, if it and people still have a lot of gut dysfunction, if it might be a good idea to start doing what are called fecal transplants, where you take a donated stool from somebody that is healthy, and you take a clean version of that stool, and you either give it by enema or you give it in freeze-dried pill form to repopulate the intestines with good bacteria. The FDA does allow that right now for bacteria infection of the intestines called C. difficile, but they are not allowing it to be done for other conditions. But I wonder if over time, if you might see that change, and that one of the things we might want to do is the best way to repopulate the intestines with good stuff might be just to give you the kind of poop from healthy people, basically, okay? But no one's done research on that, and the FDA is not allowing it at that point, okay? Or at this point. All right. Good luck to you, Donna. Oh, actually, let me do a quick screen share here, too. A lot of what I just described to you could find in my stomach and intestines chapter. And you would want to take a look at this article called Leaky Gut Syndrome, a video treatment guide, okay? Where I walk you through the various steps on that, all right? All right. Good luck to you. Hello, Sharon. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. I have had Lyme disease for at least 20 years, but have been treating for 2.5 years. It seems like my progress is stuck at about 60%. Do you have any ideas on what is stopping me from getting better? I might if I could ask you a lot of questions, but unfortunately, as you know, I can't do it here. But I'm going to direct you to take a look at a section of my, let's do a screen share here. So take a look at my chapter called I Can't Get Better, Do This. Actually, no, let's not do that. So this art, I have a bunch of articles in this chapter called Can't Get Better, Do This, but I'm going to tell you I have reformulated a couple of those that will be showing up in the new site. So rather than do that, I'm going to show you over to something else. Take a look at my treatment protocol. And you want to scroll all the way down to the end of my treatment protocol. Because the last part of my treatment protocol is what to do when you're not getting better. All right. So take a look at this section called Part 14, Special Considerations. And this is basically about what to do if you're not starting to get better, okay? And take a look at this part called 6 months and beyond. These are a bunch of ideas about things that you might want to take a look at to start getting better, okay? All right. And in this weekend, when you, either this weekend or on Friday, when I launch the new design, there is a new article I've written that is just an article about what to do if you're not getting better, okay? But a lot of it comes from this section down here, all right? All right. Hello, Kay. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. I tested IgM positive in Western blot in April. Since then, I've been on clarithromycin, Plaquenil, artemisinin, and detox supplements. Do you think I should be on an additional antibiotic? Could any of these cause pain under my left upper rib cage? Thanks for all you do. So, Kay, I don't know that any one of the, you're welcome, by the way. I don't think of any of these as giving pain in that area. That is something you probably ought to have your doctor examine you for, just to make sure there isn't anything going on. Okay, so lay the hands on you and do an exam. Okay, all right. Stethoscope and whatever else needs to be done to examine that area. All right. In terms of this treatment, so your clarithromycin is going to be treating two forms of Lyme germ. It's going to treat intracellular Lyme and spirochete Lyme. The Plaquenil can be used for a couple reasons, against which one I don't agree with how it's used. Okay, so one thing that Plaquenil does is it lowers the acidity of the inside of your cells, making them more basic, which can allow the clarithromycin to work better. Plaquenil is also anti-inflammatory, can sometimes help with a lot of the inflammatory pain. And some people will use it as an anti-cyst agent for Lyme. Remember, Lyme germ lives in you in three forms, right? Spirochete, that looks like the corkscrew, form that lives inside of cells called intracellular Lyme, and then Lyme also lives as a microscopic cyst form too. Some of my colleagues think that Plaquenil treats the cyst, but I got to tell you, there's been competing science that says it may promote cyst, okay? So I don't like using it for that purpose. What I would suggest you add to this regimen to make sure that you're treating all three forms is to add grapefruit seed extract. It's a 250 milligram pill, and I would do one pill twice a day. That is very useful for treating cyst Lyme, all right? The artemisinin, it's unclear to me whether they're using it to treat Babesia or if they're using it to boost the immune system, or they could be using it to destabilize the covering of the Lyme germ to make it more susceptible to antibiotics. So I'm not sure. I can't tell by looking at this regimen how they're using it, basically. Okay, but I think at a minimum, I would probably add the grapefruit seed extract in, 250 milligram pill, 1 pill 2 times a day. Okay, all right. Good luck to you, Kay. Hello, Rita. Let's see, what are your thoughts on short-term ozone to treat Lyme? Thank you for what you do. So I think, you're welcome, by the way. Rita, I think short-term ozone may be okay. Long-term, I'm not a big fan. So let me explain why. So ozone and hydrogen peroxide and high-dose vitamin C are all forms of what we call oxidative treatments or oxidative medicines, okay? So oxidizing agents can work by damaging fat membranes, which means they damage the covering of the germs, okay? Any germ covering is made up of a double layer of fat. They also can damage the DNA, the genetic material of germs too, all right? Now, germs are more susceptible to damage because they tend not to make antioxidants. Our cells, on the other hand, can be protected because we do produce antioxidants. Now, the trouble is, it's not clear whether if our cells are repeatedly exposed to oxidizing agents like ozone or peroxide or high-dose vitamin C, if over time they still might get damaged, right? And the reason it's not clear to me is because the major reason we all age is because of damage due to oxidative agents, okay? So as we get older, our bodies succumb to all these oxidative agents that we're exposed to naturally, just by cell processes, we make oxidizing agents. So if by doing often frequent oxidizing agent treatments, are we speeding up the aging process? Are we causing damage potentially? Maybe we are, all right? But no one's done long-term studies to know for sure. I do, on the other hand, though, think that in limited amounts, maybe a few treatments, maybe 4 treatments, that it might be a way of jump-starting a treatment. I will tell you my experience in people that have been to get oxidizing agent treatments and they come in to see me is that generally I don't find it to do that much. I think it helps maybe about 40% of the time, but it is not. They are not a group of treatments that I would put high on my to-try list in terms of things that might benefit a person. Okay? All right. Good luck to you, Rita. Thank you for that question. Hello, Rhonda. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. I have been diagnosed with some type of Borrelia through Igenics and clinical presentations of Babesia. I suspect Bartonella based on peripheral nerve pain, inflamed eyes, and painful soles. Which test do you recommend for co-infections, Igenics or Armin Labs? All right, let me answer that part first, and then I'll try to see if I can find the second part of your question here, too. Let's see here. So when it comes to co-infections, I don't really recommend testing through any company. That's either Armin or Igenics. And the reason is even Armin, or the problem with co-infections like Bartonella Babesia, is we have multiple strains of them, and our testing is only able to detect a limited number, okay? So whether it's Armin doing the testing, using his ELISpot method, or Igenics using its microscope exam called a FISH test, or Igenics using its antibody testing, we're really only able to detect up to 2 strains of Bartonella, not the 30 of those that may exist, okay, or that can exist, all right? Same with Babesia. We estimate maybe about 15 to 20 strains. And I don't care which technique is being used, whether it's the techniques that Igenics uses or the techniques that Armin uses, the majority of those are not going to be able to be detected by the testing, all right? So the best way to figure out if you have Bartonella or Babesia is to look and see, do you have a number of those symptoms? And if you do, treat for them, all right? And I think earlier tonight I already showed you all where you can find that article that I have written. Take a look in my How to Diagnose chapter. and you'll find an article called, I think it could be Babesia or Bartonella. That's my article about how do you diagnose Babesia or Bartonella, all right? So I just would not even throw your money away. Looking at those, I would make your decision based on what your clinical symptoms are, okay? All right. Then I think there's a second part to your question. Let me see if I can find it. See, which tests are best for Canadian patients? Which products are best for uveitis? So, I don't know that any one of those tests is best for Canadian or not Canadian, okay? Again, when it comes to co-infections, I just don't think it's worth testing for them, all right? In terms of uveitis, I am not. So uveitis means inflammation of the uvea, the part of the eyeball, okay? And things that can lower inflammation are treat your infections. Number two, get on some curcumin, 500 milligrams 3 times a day. In terms of eye drops, there aren't any herbal recommendations I would have for you. And if your uveitis is bad, you may even need to consider steroid drops. However, I would probably hold off on those as long as you can because they may suppress the immune system too, okay? All right. Those are just some thoughts that I have, okay? But again, if your symptoms are significant, you may just have to use those steroid eye drops too. Thanks for the question, Rhonda. Hello, Beth. Let's see. Do you have any suggestions for reducing neurologic vestibular symptoms? I've recently started having a lot of issues with dizziness, eye twitching, and eyes having a hard time focusing. All right. So, Beth, I guess what I would do with that is, first of all, make sure you're treating the right infections. Make sure you're treating your Lyme. I would consider with those kind of symptoms whether you might have Bartonella. So take a look at the article I've written about how to diagnose Bartonella. That's the one called It Could Be Bartonella or Babesia. Okay, the signs and symptoms. Try to figure out if you're treating the right infections. Treat the right infections, okay? Secondly, you want to get inflammation down. So I would be on the curcumin, 500 milligrams 3 times a day because that lowers cytokine inflammation. And then the last thing I would do is take a look at you want to work to repair nerve injury, okay? And step one to that is repairing the cell membrane of the nerves. That's made up of a double layer of fat, and also repairing the cell, the covering of the fat layer that makes up the covering of your cell energy factories called mitochondria. And for that, you would do something called NT-factor energy. I like the product by Research Nutritionals for that. And you would want to do 2 pills 3 times a day. And you would do that for 2 months and then decrease it down to 1 pill 3 times a day after. And you do that for 4 more months, okay? Number 2, you want to get on some glutathione because glutathione fixes things from the inside, okay? It also helps with detox. It can lower cytokines as well too. But I would do a liposomal variety because you want to get them into the ears, okay, or into the brain and into the nerves that are being bothered, all right? And so you want to do liposomal. I like using Trifortify Orange or Trifortify Watermelon as my liposomal glutathiones. I like using 5 milliliters twice a day, okay? So those are some of the minimal things that I would wind up doing for this. The other thing you might want to look at would be some acupuncture can sometimes be helpful. Another type of modality, which sometimes osteopathic physicians will do, sometimes massage therapists will do, is something called cranial sacral therapy. It involves putting light pressure on the bones of the head to change the way that the fluid flows through the brain, and that can sometimes create a healing effect as well too, okay? All right, now I'm gonna do a quick screen share here for you. For more information, more detail about how do you fix the nerves and the hearing nerve, take a look at that chapter called Brain and Nerves. I would take a look at this article. Take a look at ideas that I've written in this brain fog and Lyme disease you can fix. So this is really about how do you fix the brain nerves so you even start thinking better. Any of the nerves in the brain that come out of the brain. Okay? All right. So that's what I would do. I would take a look at that. And all right. So let me move on here. Let me get out of this. Information there. And good luck to you. Hi, Dr. Marty Ross. What are your thoughts about umbilical stem cells for Lyme treatment? So, Natasha, I gave an answer earlier about stem cell therapy, of which it doesn't matter to me whether it comes from umbilical stem cells or whether it comes from stem cells that get derived from platelets or get derived from your fat. It's the same response. Okay, so listen, if you were not here earlier, take a listen to the recording tomorrow. It was one of the first questions that I answered tonight. Okay, all right. Thank you for the question. Hello, Jamie. Let's see. My daughter was just diagnosed through a Western blot test where she had 7 markers. What other lab work should be performed? She is on the 100 2-time-a-day doxy, but we do not see infectious disease doctor for 2 more weeks. Jamie, at this point, it's hard for me to say. I would need to know more about what her symptoms are exactly. I would need to know more history about tick bites, where she was bitten, etc. And I think you just got to wait till you see that infectious disease doctor, unfortunately. Okay? All right. Good luck to you. Good luck to your daughter, too. Hello, Cindy. Let's see. What are your thoughts on melatonin use? So, melatonin is a chemical that's made naturally in our brains, and it's produced in relationship to what's called the circadian rhythm. And that is that it's made in higher quantities at the nightfall, basically, okay? And it helps lead to increases of a chemical in your brain called GABA, and GABA can induce sleep, all right? So I like using it to induce sleep if people are having a hard time sleeping. I find it most useful, though, in people that have been through time zone changes that has disturbed the function of their circadian rhythm, okay? Or I will use it in people that are having sleep-related problems due to shift work to try to induce sleep. I'm usually going to use it about an hour or 2 hours before a sleep time. You want to take it consistently each night at the same time. You want to dose usually around 3 milligrams. It's going to be enough in most people, okay? All right. Good luck to you, Cindy. Thank you for that. Hello, Zanetta. Welcome back again. Let's see. Good evening, Dr. Ross. Should someone take, I think you mean Mariva, Phytostan, and quercetin at the same time, having what I think is allergies, tried nasal flush with sea salt and baking soda, which caused massive pain in the whole head. Also, does any of the natural antibiotics from Wildcraft help with chest, ear, tonsil, and gut infections? And if so, which ones would someone with Lyme add to treatment? Thank you for your expertise and time. All right, let me go back here. So, Zanetta, if you're having allergy symptoms, the herb that is going to do best for that is something that stabilizes what are called mast cells. Mast cells are where histamines are made, okay? And mast cells are found throughout our body, but they're also found in the nasal passages. If you're allergic to something, it will eventually land on the mast cell, and it will trigger the mast cell to release histamines. So you want to stabilize your mast cells so they don't tend to make as many histamines and they don't release them as easily. Quercetin is a good mast cell stabilizer, and I like using it as a 250 milligram pill When I'm using it for allergies, usually 500 milligrams twice a day is going to be enough, okay? So you would do 2 of the 250 milligram pills twice a day. Something else that you can add is something called luteolin. That's Luteolin as a 100 milligram pill. It also is a very strong mast cell stabilizer, and I would do 100 milligrams 3 times a day. I have it available as part of a supplement called Neuroprotect. That's Neuroprotec. And that Neuroprotect has 100 milligrams of luteolin per pill with just very small amounts of rutin and very small amounts of quercetin, not in a way that's going to make any major difference on your allergies. But you could do that Neuroprotect along with the quercetin, okay? Now, in terms of, I guess, so the wildcraft herbs that I am carrying at my clinic in my supplement store, which are the Cryptolepis, Hutania, Sitta acuta, Otoba bark, and cat's claw, all are designed to treat Lyme and the co-infection specifically, okay? So the Otoba and cat's claw, that's going to treat Lyme. Hutania, Sitta acuta, I like using that combination for Bartonella. Sitta sometimes can help with Lyme as well, too. And Sitta can also help with Babesia a little bit. And then the Cryptolepis is an herb that treats Babesia. In terms of their ability to actually treat sinus infection, if you will, or gut infection, any herbal antibiotic can treat multiple different things. I just haven't seen studies. I'm aware of them helping in those kind of situations, okay? There is also another product that I have called Biocide, and I mentioned that earlier tonight. It has multiple different herbs in it. Now, the herbs that are in that probably have the ability to treat sinuses, definitely have the ability to treat for gut infections, would treat probably Bartonella, and also definitely treat Lyme. So that might be something for you to consider. If you were to look at dosing information about that, take a look at the free article I have at Treat Lyme about that, okay? All right. All right. Good luck to you. Nice to see you here again, Zanetta. Hello, Rhonda. Let's see. If a person has difficulty finding a doctor to prescribe antibiotics, how long is it best to be on wildcraft herbs for Lyme, Babesia, and Bartonella? Is it okay to take NT factor, all supplements, IV glutathione, and wildcraft herbs? Could a person add liposomal glutathione? Thank you. So the answer is yes, you could add liposomal glutathione to that. It is okay to take those along with the NT factor. And then in terms of how long, so typically if the herbs are going to work to treat your co-infection, you should start seeing the co-infections getting better, the symptoms that are part of those co-infections getting better for Babesia within a couple months, and for Bartonella within a couple months, okay? If the Babesia symptoms and if the Bartonella symptoms are not getting better, then it may be time to look at getting somebody to prescribe prescriptions for you, all right? Regarding the Lyme germ, it can take longer to get the Lyme germ symptoms to shift. And I sometimes will use the Otoba and the cat's claw even 9 months, 12 months before I think about changing those, okay? All right. So I hope that gives you the information you were looking for there, Rhonda. Good luck to you. Hello, Pamela. See, I just met a Lyme patient who is using topical horse worming paste to kill Lyme parasite. I do know that moon blindness in horses can be caused by Lyme. Have you heard about this topical approach? You know, I haven't actually. That's interesting. That's what I'll say to that. But no, I'm not aware of that. All right, Pamela. Thank you. Hello, Barbara. Let's see. Lyme confirmed, mold indicated per blood work, and Morgellons symptoms. LMD treating all with Questran and antibiotics. I'm told they suspected link between mold and Morgellons. What do you say? Where can I find the latest and most progressive research on these illnesses? The universities, NGO. I know it's not the CDC I use. All right. So I'm trying to think about where to have you go. So Morgellon. So first of all, information about Lyme. Take a look at Treat Lyme. Okay, I've got a lot of current information on there. Take a look at that. Current information about Morgellons. Boy, I'm just not. There's just not a lot of good information out there. There's not a lot of good research out there. I'm not sure where to have you go look at that one. I know I get a lot of my information about treating Morgellons from information I've learned at ILADS meetings. I'm not aware that those are available for public consumption, but you might want to take a look at the ILADS site and see about looking into purchasing the proceeds from some of the previous conferences. I believe 2 or 3 years ago, there was quite a bit of time devoted to treating Morgellons, and so you'd be able to hear some of the experts talking about that. Okay, and beyond that, is there a link between mold and Morgellons? The problem with Morgellons is we still are not fully aware of what it is. There are theories that these lesions that people get on their skin that we see in Morgellons might be due to mold, but it could be even due to mold that lives on the skin. It may have nothing to do with mold from the environment. In other words, it may have to do with mold that naturally lives on your skin, causing a breakdown of the skin due to immune suppression from having Lyme infection, for instance. Okay, so it's not clear what they are exactly, and I have not seen a linkage that I'm aware of about mold in the environment, as in sick building syndromes leading to Morgellons per se. Okay, all right. So I just don't have good information for you here. All right. Thanks for that question, Barbara. Hello, Jen. Let's see. How long does it take to feel a flu-like sickness after a tick bite infects you with Lyme? Well, some people never get a flu-like illness from that tick bite. Often, if you are going to get flu-like symptoms, usually it's going to be within the first week, maybe even days of that tick bite. Okay, but not everyone gets those flu-like symptoms. All right. Hello, Jen again. Let's see. Do you recommend taking antibiotics preventively after suspicious bite, or wait to see if there is a sickness that develops? I err on this. So keep in mind, my perspective about Lyme is that I treat the disasters, right? So my practice is full of people that if somebody had just given them antibiotic in the first few weeks of their tick bite, they wouldn't be here, all right? Now, a lot of those people, it was actually very obvious that they had Lyme at that time. They had symptoms suggesting it, okay? But I treat the disaster, so my perspective is skewed, and I err on the side of giving antibiotics to treat even with a tick bite, especially if you get your tick bite in an area where there's a lot of Lyme. So if you're getting it in New Jersey, where 95% of ticks carry Lyme, get on antibiotics. If you're in the Northeast, definitely. If you are in the upper Midwest, Michigan, Wisconsin, Upper Peninsula, Michigan, get on antibiotics, definitely. If you're in Northern California, where about 40% of ticks carry Lyme, get on antibiotics, okay? So that's my perspective on that. All right. And I would use doxycycline 100 milligrams twice a day. And I do that for about 3 or 4 weeks, okay? All right. Hello, Sida. Let's see. Are herbs as powerful for Bartonella as pharmaceuticals? I'm having shin bone pain, also ravenous hunger, hunger, on and off. I don't eat any processed food and sweating. Could it be parasites? I mean, it's possible it could be parasites. Shin pain and sweating. Shin pain sometimes is Bartonella. Sweating sometimes is Bartonella Babesia. I need to ask you a lot more questions. I can't tell from what you've told me here whether it's Babesia or Bartonella. Take a look at my article I've written about that. Okay. But in terms of Bartonella, are the Bartonella herbs as powerful as the pharmaceuticals? No. I think they work about 70-75% of the time. I write about that in my article called Kills Bartonella, where I describe the herbs. The prescriptions work about 80-85% of the time, and generally I like using two prescription antibiotic combinations to treat Bartonella. Okay? All right. So thanks for that question. For ideas on the antibiotics, take a look at my article called Kills Bartonella. Okay? All right, everyone, that is it for me for tonight. My stepdaughter is graduating this evening, and I want to go see that. I want to participate in some of the festivities around that. So I'm going to head on out here with the Basinji crew here, my dogs here in a second, and head on over to that ceremony that's going to be taking place in about a couple hours, okay? All right, so it's been good visiting with you all. Keep an eye out for your email tomorrow morning because at the end of the around 6:30 in the morning, you should get an email from me telling you that the recording is ready, and hopefully I have figured out how to change the webinar platform so it accepts people signing up from Europe. Okay, all right, that's what my goal is. So hopefully keep your eyes out for that tomorrow morning. All right. I'm glad you're all here tonight. The second here, I'm going to redirect you over to treatlyme.net, the Treat Lyme site. Keep in mind that site is going to be going away probably in a few days or at the end of the weekend, and I'm going to be launching a new version. So come back and take a look at that. I think it's going to be a much more functional site. It's going to work better. All right? All right. Take care, everyone. Good night.